In 2019, YouTube was caught violating the Child Online Privacy Protection Act, or COPPA. Since settling, YouTube has enacted new policies that are meant to serve as a smokescreen so they can dodge responsibility and scapegoat creators. As such, for my own protection, it is my obligation to advise you that this video is not aimed at children. My target audience is not children. Parental discretion is advised. Hey guys, how's everyone doing? This is the Sentinel watching over Geekdom, and welcome back to Sentinel Reviews. It's been a while, and for that I apologize. Let me get the introduction out of the way, and then I'll explain what happened. Today, we are finally beginning our look at the Season 24 trilogy with We Are the Daleks, released in July of 2015, written by Jonathan Morris, directed by Ken Bentley. We Are the Daleks stars Sylvester McCoy as the Seventh Doctor and Bonnie Langford as Melanie Mel Bush. Also featured in the cast is Nicholas Briggs as the Daleks. As always, I will be talking spoilers, so this is your only warning to jump ship if you do not want to be spoiled on this story. And as I mentioned, first of all, I would like to apologize. A lot of things happened between me listening to this story and doing this review. The first of which was my old laptop died. So then I had to get it replaced. So I replace it, I download OBS, Audacity, and Serif Movie Plus, which is what I use for editing. And then I go to record another video, because I'm doing another project as well. And when I go to export that so I can upload it, turns out Serif doesn't support Movie Plus anymore and shut down all its servers. Which means I couldn't use Movie Plus. So I then had to find a new video editor. So here I am now. And so yeah, that's why this took so long, because everything died and I had to get everything replaced. Now on to the review with the Season 24 trilogy. And this is something a bit different for me. You know, I've reviewed trilogies in the past. I've reviewed the Jamie trilogy. I've reviewed the Sarah Kingdom trilogy, the Locum Doctors trilogy, and, you know, along with some of the bigger arcs I've reviewed, like the Fourth Doctor Adventure Series 8, or what was the other one? The Six and Charlie arc, wow. I've always reviewed narrative story arcs, or narrative trilogies, you know, stories that are all connected and bound together by a single narrative thread flowing through each story. The Season 24 trilogy is not that kind of trilogy. It's not a story arc. It's a thematic trilogy. There is no threads connecting the stories together. There is no narrative between them. They are just connected by a single theme. You know, like other thematic trilogies include the Villains trilogy, Omega, Davros, and Master, and even one that was released this year, the Renegade trilogy, Dark Universe, the Psychic Circus, and Subterfuge. But, so yeah, and obviously from the title, the threads of the theme of the Season 24 trilogy, I keep mixing those up. Sorry, as you can tell from the different lighting, it's kind of late. I keep forgetting to do this, so I'm doing it now. Anyway, the theme of the Season 24 trilogy is that it is set during Season 24, Sylvester McCoy's first season as the Seventh Doctor. Now, speaking of, one of the things that people talk about the Seventh Doctor is his dramatic change in character from Season 24 to Season 25 and 26. How in Season 24, he was much more clownish. He was much more silly. You know, he was basically a much shallower version of Patrick Troughton's Second Doctor. And then with Season 25 and 26, he was rewritten to be this darker figure, this master manipulator, this grand chess master. So in preparation for this trilogy, I watched two Season 24 stories. I watched Paradise Towers and Dragonfire, the stories that everyone says are the best of Season 24. And I do have to say, I think the Seventh Doctor is much more clownish in Season 24, is a massive exaggeration. Like, yes, there is a distinct difference between his characterization in Season 24 and in seasons 25 and 26, but he's not more clownish, he's not sillier, he's not goofier. It's very much, how to put this, the biggest thing I noticed is that the grand chess master personification of this Doctor just isn't manifested. Otherwise, there isn't really that much difference. I kicked my table. There isn't that much difference between the season 24 characterization and the later characterization of the Seventh Doctor. It's just that, like I said, his major thing, the Grand Chess Master, he's already won before the story even begins. That's not part of his character here. Also, one thing I've kind of learned is that I'm not the biggest fan of the Seventh Doctor audios. Nothing wrong with them, and there are a few I like. It's just, I always feel that when I listen to them, out of all the Doctors on audio, McCoy kind of gives the weakest performance. Like, he's the closest. He's not quite there yet. He's the closest to phoning it in. And then, of course, which one of my friends, Mason, pointed out that in an interview somewhere, I really should have researched this myself, McCoy said he prefers the season 24 characterization of the Doctor over the later characterization of the Doctor. So I thought, oh, that sounds interesting. And given that there is this trilogy of stories set during season 24, I thought, oh, I might like these. And I'll talk with Mel a little bit when I start talking about the story. It's already been 6 minutes and I haven't even talked about the story yet. So, we are the Daleks. This was the 201st story released in Big Finish's monthly adventures. And in the making of, for this story, Jonathan Morris said he very much wanted it to be a celebratory story in the same vein of Remembrance of the Daleks as a comparison. And in that way, you can see all these threads from other Dalek stories here. The biggest one being Evil of the Daleks with Skaro and the Dalek Emperor. And then there are others here, like, in a way, this story is kind of a sequel to The Juggernauts, which was a Sixth Doctor Dalek story. And I believe it's the only other time Mel has encountered the Daleks. Evil of the Daleks, the Juggernauts. Remembrance of the Daleks gets a very interesting mention that I'll try to talk about later as I'm recapping the plot. And yeah, so anyway, the premise here is that the Doctor, deciding to take a little bit of a break, brings Mel back to her own time period, the late 1980s. And in the middle of London, there is a new skyscraper that's shown up, shaped like a Dalek. So the Doctor and Mel decide to go down different routes and investigate what's going on here. And right off the bat, I really like the dynamic between the Doctor and Mel, First of all, I love Mel on Big Finish. I'm not the biggest fan of her on TV. I don't dislike her, I'm just not her biggest fan, but I love her in Big Finish. She's such a strong, confident, powerful character. And it's interesting too, real quick, because I'm going to be saying this word a lot, the Dalek sky-shaped skyscraper that's shown up is called the Xenos Tower. And while the Doctor is going through his own methods, his own ways of investigating what's going on, Mel infiltrates the Xenos Tower. And right off the bat, I love the Doctor and Mel's dynamic, as I was saying. The Doctor puts a lot of trust in Mel, rather than them being separated, the way Doctors and companions usually are in these stories, they both set off to do their own thing. Like, they come up with a plan and go their own separate ways, and it really works. It shows how much the Doctor trusts Mel and how reliable he views her. Speaking of which, Mel is also really great in this story. Thinking about it now, I noticed that in none of these stories Bonnie Langford screams, which was a common criticism of Mel. That I'm not going to get into. I'm just going to focus on her role in this story, which is really good. Thinking more about it, she is one of the highlights. Anyway, so the tower and the business of the tower is run by a man named Alex Xenos. There are other changes to Mel's time as well, such as Warfleet, a a massively multiplayer online role playing game, MMORPG, that's obviously very anachronistic. It's way ahead of its time. You know, there's a virtual reality headset, and players connect online before the internet's been invented. There's actually a callback onto that at the end of the story, you know, and it's one of those eye-rolling things. The Doctor creates the internet. Going on a lot of tangents here. Like I said, it's late, so I'm a little unfocused. Anyway, and I'll get back to Warfleet in a minute. I gotta get to the Daleks. Which brings me to something else. The supporting cast in this story is huge. Like, I think on average, a Big Finish story will have maybe 3 to 6 characters in a supporting cast. This one has a ton, you know. There is... Mel has infiltrated the IT department of the Xenos Corporation. And there's an employee who works under her. I think his name is Brimsley. And then there's a reporter who the Doctor is working with, trying to figure out what's going on from the other side of things. There's Alex Xenos, the owner of the Xenos Tower in the Xenos Corporation. There's the Daleks. There's the Thals. There's a lot going... Let me sum it up like this. There's a lot going on in this story, but it never feels rushed, and it never feels, sloppily done is what I think I'm going for, you know? I just totally lost my train of thought, excuse me. There's a lot going on in this story, and it's really well paced. Nothing is dropped, nothing feels abrupt, nothing feels rushed, but the pacing is that very high octane, high energy. Anyway, as it turns out, Xenos is acting as an emissary to the Daleks. He's saying in return for a partnership to the Daleks, he's pledging this to a bunch of politicians, by the way, the Daleks will make the British Empire the jewel of the planet Earth in exchange for the planet Earth's resources, and, you know, they will help the Earth into the intergalactic market. And we focus on 2 politicians in particular, Niles Bunbury and Celia Dunthorpe, who is the secondary antagonist of this story. And Celia is just despicable. She is the worst kind of evil, and she's great. That's actually all I want to say on the subject of Celia, because with current events, what's going on with Celia in this story, and her motivation, her goals, her objectives, and some of the things she does, it's really relevant. And I'm not gonna lie, I'm uncomfortable talking about it, and I'm not sure I'm tactful enough to talk about it, if that makes any sense. But yeah, Celia's great, and that's all I should say. Niles is also on the opposite end of the spectrum. He's not quite a rival of Celia. They're shown to be sort of buddy-buddy, but he still retains his morality. He still retains his ideals. The star of this story, really, though, is the Daleks. The Daleks are just... This is probably one of the most effective Dalek stories I've heard in a long time, and the Daleks are probably really effective here. Like, at most, a lot of times, Dalek stories lately have been portraying Daleks just as sentient tanks. You know, barge in, shoot the place up, might makes right, essentially. And that's the thing. There's more to that. There's more to the Daleks than just that. And this story portrays that really well. They're conniving, they're scheming, they're working to a plan that is not brute force. The Dalek Emperor in particular is just terrifying in this story, and Nicholas Briggs does a great job bringing him to life, and his scenes with the Doctor, especially towards the end, are all great, you know, and you can really measure the mettle of a Doctor in how he confronts the Daleks. And the 7th Doctor's scenes with the Daleks in this story are just really well done. You know, And of course, that brings us to some of the other things, like, for example, Warfleet is not really a computer game. The Daleks are using the gamers to pilot their drone ships and, to destroy Thal rebels, because the Daleks operate based on a form of logic. Not quite like the Cybermen, but they do still operate on principles of logic of some kind. And according to the Dalek Emperor, that makes... Really? Sorry, that's my dog. And according to the Dalek Emperor, the logic they operate on makes them predictable, easy to defeat. However, the logic of a child, the thought process of a child, is much more brilliant. It's much more unprecedented. And speaking of which, that is the tie-in to Remembrance of the Daleks. It's been wow, I've gone on for 15 minutes just gushing about this story and every great thing about it. But yeah, no, there's really not much more to say here. I don't really have any major complaints. I think it's all just minor nitpicks. But everything is really... Except that it does end on a cliffhanger. Excuse me. The story does end on a cliffhanger. And as far as I know, that cliffhanger has never been picked up. Now, that's the thing with me. I don't mind being ambiguous, like Inception. Just the first example I can think of. But I hate being unresolved. Which is something I think, and, that's kind of the one downside of this story, that unresolved cliffhanger. Other than that, We Are the Daleks is kind of amazing. I don't know where it ranks for me personally in my own ranking of 7th Doctor audios, but it is definitely high up there, and I'm going to give it a 9 out of 10. And join me next week when our look at the Season 24 trilogy continues with The Warehouse. And did you like what you saw? Start a conversation in the comments below. Remember to like, comment, subscribe. Click the bell next to subscribe to get notifications when I upload. In the description box below, you will find the link to my Ko-fi, where you can help support the channel, and you'll find the link to my Twitter, where you can follow me and get updates on the channel. This is the Sentinel watching over Geekdom, and I'll see you guys next time.